This is not the showcase video. The final video featuring Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka will be posted in a couple weeks. Probably. But I've been working on Anakin and Obi-Wan for the last month, I think, on and off. I don't know, I lost track of time a while ago. But point is, I've wanted to give you guys an update on exactly where I'm at with these two characters. These two characters being some of my most favorite characters, period. I mean, definitely my favorite two Star Wars characters of all time. I grew up with Anakin and Obi-Wan through episode 1, 2, and 3, and also through the Clone Wars, of course, which we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of this year, and the 10th anniversary of the series having aired just past, I think it was like Wednesday, and that's incredible. I mean, 10 years ago, I was in my neighborhood's exercise room watching the very first episode, Ambush, with Yoda and Thyre, Jek, and Reese, and all that. That's insane to think about. But back to Anakin and Obi-Wan, as you might have already been able to tell, I wanted to make the outfits that they wore in between Season 3 and the upcoming Season 7, where they will be undergoing one final outfit change. That obviously is the final outfits that they have before Revenge of the Sith will pick up. And yeah, so first off with Anakin, I had to pick the head. I wound up going with the Attack of the Clones Anakin head that first debuted in 2013, simply because it is the only Hayden Christensen head that doesn't have any unnecessary facial features, and it also doesn't have the headset from his Jedi Interceptors. So I took this one and I painted the scar over his right eye, and the same on the aggressive facial expression, which you will see during the showcase. And then the actual robes, of course, I started by ordering a bunch of large capes from Cape Madness, and then I cut different pieces of the fabric out and held them in place, trimmed them if I needed to, and then glued them in place, which is definitely a very tedious process and can be tough to get right. But these I really love in particular with Anakin and Obi-Wan, because the robes actually extend from the front of the torso on the lower half all the way up and over to the lower halves of the back of the torsos, and I'm so proud of how that effect turned out on both minifigures. And I'm kind of talking about the two of them at the same time here, even though I'm only really showing Anakin, because the robes on the two minifigures are very, very similar. And speaking of the robes on Anakin, I did actually use like a purple wash over my own mixed dark brown color to achieve the perfect color scheme to match his robes from the Clone Wars Season 3 and onwards as closely as possible. And Anakin did actually have like a purplish tint on his robes throughout the later seasons of the Clone Wars, which I found to be definitely pretty interesting when I actually, really paid attention. They're not just the simple black, dark brown, and regular brown that you see in Revenge of the Sith. But once I had the robes on Anakin done, I did glue on a piece of cardstock to the front and back of the lower halves of the torso as well, this time to paint on the bells, which was definitely pretty tedious. And I also have the little like lightsaber holster painted onto the left side of that belt, and also the pouch glued on there as well. And real quick, one final note on the robes for Anakin: they're not continuous, meaning even though they look like they continue from the torso onto the legs, the lower halves of the robes are actually glued onto the painted Cape Madness waist cape that you see draped over his legs. And I just managed to cut them to be the exact same size as the ones on the torso, and I positioned them just right before gluing them on. And it's, like I said, all a very tedious process. And there's even more to these minifigures. I haven't even made Anakin's lightsaber yet, and I'm really trying to avoid stealing it from Rey's from The Last Jedi, even though I kind of already did for these photos that you might have already noticed. And that's actually my buddy Aaron, LEGO 9's design. So it'll probably look pretty similar to that, pretty much as a copy of that same lightsaber. And again, you'll see a lot more in the actual showcase on the hand detail, and like I said earlier, that aggressive facial expression. The legs were probably the most time-consuming part about making Anakin. But making Obi-Wan, once again, as I mentioned just a second ago, the robes are very similar between these two minifigures. Obi-Wan's are almost the exact same, it's just the layers underneath. The two main robe pieces are positioned just slightly further apart with Obi-Wan, and also he doesn't actually have the robes continuing down onto the back of his waist cape, so just a little bit different, but still pretty much the same. And I did make sure to accommodate his specific set of robes. And also, once I did paint on the main tan primary color scheme, I did actually hit it with a dark tan wash, which I think definitely made the figure much, much better. And one of the fun parts about the painting process with Obi-Wan was definitely the white gauntlets. As I say all the time, white paint is not fun to work with. And so thankfully, though, I managed to cut out the 3D clone gauntlets that Obi-Wan sports, and I managed to paint them in white, and they wound up looking pretty clean. So pretty proud of that. You'll see the Republic symbol and the comm links that that are attached to both of those gauntlets during the showcase. But as you might have noticed, I did glue on the pouches to his belt as well. Again, same thing, cardstock was placed there before doing so. And yeah, just a lot of painting. And obviously you might have already noticed the head as well is quite different from Legos, but also pretty similar because it is Legos. And I do really like Lego's Obi-Wan head. It's just Ewan McGregor's hair was not that red. He didn't have orange hair, so I pretty much had to use my own brown color, repaint the hair, the eyebrows, the beard, even the eyes to make it look consistent before hitting the hairpiece with like a dark brown wash, because for whatever reason the hairpiece wound up looking a little bit lighter than the facial hair like on the head, which was kind of weird because I used the same color. But anyway, the lightsaber was definitely pretty interesting because I was actually using a design inspired by my buddy Shane, The Last Prime, and it was really great. The design looked fantastic and I was personally a fan. It's just going into it, I knew that it was probably going to be pretty fragile, and because what it is it's basically a Lego lightsaber cut up in two different places, and the top and bottom kind of flipped upside down with part of a Brick Arms combat knife glued in the middle, and it kind of worked. I mean, I managed to get the alignment all working properly and it looked good, but it's just way too fragile. I think I need to consider a stronger glue for situations like this, because any Lego bar accessories that are glued together like that are meant to be pulled in and out of a minifigure's hand is pretty much guaranteed to break in my experience. So like I said, I probably just need to find a better glue to use. But instead I opted for Brickforge's Obi-Wan lightsaber hilt, and I got one in black to keep the handle black, repainted the top and bottom, and it wound up looking pretty great, and I'm honestly a little more satisfied with it than the original. And also the two minifigures do have tiny tactical glove tops. For Obi-Wan's boots, I did actually have to mix my own like reddish brown color to achieve that. You can kind of see that color on the pouches because I use that same color there. Again, you'll see all of that in the showcase. And this is just a making of video, more so a progress update to remind you guys that I'm still here and that I still exist, and I am working on all of these minifigures to celebrate the Clone Wars 10th anniversary, which has since passed, but that's okay. Ahsoka is going to look awesome, and if you do want to keep up with the progress on her, or maybe even Captain America from the first Avenger, can't believe Chris Evans finally just announced that he's leaving after Avengers 4. That was an emotional tweet. And also Red Skull, you can keep up with the progress on all of those over on my Patreon first, where I do post those regular progress photos as I work on minifigures, and also I will be posting preview photos like the ones you've seen in this video, but for those figures over on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, like I have for many years now. I think that is pretty much it. Just a quick update on Anakin and Obi-Wan. It has been so awesome to finally make these two minifigures. It's crazy to think that in all the early years that I spent making my first custom clones, you know, from the years 2008 all the way, I think, to 2013, I never actually made a custom Anakin, Obi-Wan, or Ahsoka, because it was just a different time with different standards, and everybody was perfectly okay with Legos printing. Nobody was thinking about fabric, nobody was thinking about custom lightsabers or any of that stuff, and so it has been really awesome to make these minifigures and just basically kind of like revisit that lower standard that I and a handful of other customizers had back then, and basically make the best versions of the minifigures we were trying to make back then when the Clone Wars was first starting out. And yeah, I'm probably going to need about another week or two to make Ahsoka, but it's going to be great. The showcase is going to be great. I hope I'll see you there, and yeah, I'll see you then. All right, bye-bye.